Good day, my fellow colleagues. Um, I've been struggling to record these past few weeks. I think one has reached burnout, mentally drained. It's the end of the year, but work still needs to be done. Unfortunately, you might think that just because you don't work in a clinical environment, you will get a break um, around this time of the year. But in the role that I'm in, unfortunately, this tends to be a kind of like what it is like in the trauma units and surgical specialties around this time. But anyway, before I disappeared, we were actively recruiting some additional members to my team, and that process on its own, took a toll on me. I think I underestimated what it required, the process itself, because we were not just recruiting ordinary members of the team. It was managerial members, and at some point I was also recruiting for a PA. So given the kind of role I have, it couldn't just pick anyone as a PA. So that took its toll. But the other side, the reason why today I thought let me record and post this, it's just a conversation that I think we need to have as a fraternity, the medical fraternity specifically. I cannot speak for other professions. My experience, knowledge, and expertise are in the health industry, so I can only speak with authority, with some authority in that regard. Sorry, but what this conversation was triggered by messages that I've been seeing, which has now become an annual thing, that in December your community service doctors start getting worried about the following month, January, because they will be without jobs, and they don't know what to do. But I was having a conversation with a colleague of mine this past month, because I was trying to use her as my soundboard. I was bouncing ideas. It was actually one idea that I was trying to bounce off of her. The idea of having colleagues doing work without compensation. And when I say compensation, I mean without monetary compensation. So they wouldn't get a salary or income. but one would consider them maybe getting certain benefits instead of the compensation, benefits that would be organized by the organization that they would work for. In my case, my organization, but there might also be other organizations that might offer similar a similar type of arrangement. Now, the conversation. So I did a poll on three of the big groups that we have on Facebook, where we have doctors there, because I wanted to get a sense of where people's thinking is regarding this. I know in the past it has infuriated a lot of people. There's been a lot of heated discussions around it. That people who are employers, the government, and certain institutions are exploiting doctors in the name of giving them experience and exposure. They are taking advantage of the situation as is, and therefore exploiting doctors by expecting them to work for free. But they would be expected to work as hard as the people who are being paid, and they would have the same responsibilities and obligations. So that was the issue. And I think this also extends to the I think it's called supernumerary registrars, the registrars who don't get employed by the department, but they get registered with HPSSA as registrars and get a training number. They enroll at the medical school for the MEd. Only difference is they don't get employed by the department in order to earn a salary. In my department, they were not doing calls where I was training before I left the program. They were not expected to do calls. But you know, in some institutions, in some departments, they might be expected to do calls. I don't know. But the conversation is it such a bad thing when you create those opportunities for those who are interested to do certain duties and tasks reasonable, not to the extent that you'd expect from someone who's earning a salary. I'd say, for instance, in my case, what I'm looking for, because this is an idea that I have, it's not something that is actually being done. It was, you know, I'm always in my thoughts and thinking about, coming up with crazy ideas about everything in life. So, you'll excuse me. I keep getting emails and they pop up as I'm recording, so they distract me. So, um, my thinking is, um, you have a situation. I was saying that. So I come up with these crazy ideas, right? So I got this idea, but it's not an idea that I can say that. Okay, I've thought of this, tomorrow I'm implementing it. The nature of the organization I work for is very bureaucratic, stickler for policies. So you don't just wake up and do things. You write memos, and sometimes you are called to give a verbal account or presentation on what you are proposing, and answer questions to the principals and who are entrusted with running the organization. So it's something that I haven't even proposed to them, but my thinking was, we have this department. We do a certain kind of work that requires expertise of clinically trained people, right? In different ways, different tasks, different degrees of demand on you as an employee, right? So I'm like, there are people, it's not a lot, but there were a few people who approached me when I was still very active in trying to assist people get jobs. So they would get in touch with me, ask for any type of, employment, willing to do it without compensation, just so they don't go insane sitting at home day in, day out. So, but that was a while back, because now because of work demands, and also my own personal issues, which I had a lot on my plate, so I kind of I've offloaded a lot of things that I was doing on the side, including trying to assist people. I do now and again, but yeah. So, my thinking was, okay, why not have this situation where you create these opportunities for people to do this type of work, but it's not about you, which is, in this case, it's not about me and my organization meeting our targets and getting work output. Yes, we want that, so, but we will not hold the people to the same standard that would hold people who are employed and earning a salary. Obviously, the quality of the work must definitely be on point, because we are dealing with people's lives, even if it's not in a clinical setting, but the work we do still has great implications on people's lives, and vulnerable people of the society. So the quality must always meet the expected standards. But in terms of the volume or the workload that a person would be tasked with, then that's where the difference would be. But in the course of this, you get people getting experience. When when I got interviewed for this post that I'm in, coming into the organization, and also my experiences now having to interview people to come into the organization and interacting with people who are stakeholders. I'm talking about medical professionals who are our stakeholders. You get to understand that people don't really understand much about the kind of work that we do, how we do it, why we do things the way we do them, and ultimately what we aim to achieve. They've got their own understanding, which is partially fueled by the narrative that's in the media space and whatever little information they gather from other sources. But it's actually a lot of it is not factual. It's misguided and misinformation. So my thing is, okay, you get people, and I'm not talking only about doctors, by the way. I'm talking about health professionals, people who are clinically trained, not only doctors. So you get these people who are sitting at home doing nothing, not earning an income. Some might be fortunate enough to do locums now and again, but not enough. So you get these people, give them that space, come in here, invite them, have an induction. What are we about? What are we trying to achieve? How do we do this? Then get them inside the system. Then, because they are not being compensated, but there are a lot of training opportunities. And this is where then the organization would play a role. And when or should I make the proposal to the principals, this is the selling point, that the organization must then commit to assist these people in one form of training or the other. I mean, just by the nature of the job they'll be doing, they'll be trained in something. But there are also internal training opportunities. There are external training opportunities. And both these actually help build up your CV, because you can use them in other areas as well, or with other other organizations or entities where you might then get employed. So those would be some of the incentives that one would get. Instead of compensation. Obviously, even the people who are being paid, they do get opportunities. It's for staff anyway. But if you were sitting at home doing nothing, then you wouldn't get the opportunities. I guess the main challenge would be one's traveling costs in terms of fuel, and also those who need to have lunch. Some of us don't have lunch really at work, but those who need to have lunch, how do you then cater for those things because they don't have an income, they don't have a stipend. So those are things one would need to look at. But the primary thing would be that they gain some form of training that will assist them with their CVs, and they might get opportunities. So because we do have opportunities that are only for internal people, we give internal people first preference. If we don't have, then we go and look outside. So you get that as well, that you might be in that group that might be given first preference when we have opportunities to apply for. But that's me explaining my concept. But in general, I'm just saying that why can we, when I mentioned that I did the polls and I posted them on the groups on Facebook, my polls I think were removed because I can't see them anymore. And I think they were removed on the same day that I posted them in 3 groups. I can't see all of them. Ironically, in 2 of the groups, I'm one of the admins, but yeah, they might have offended people. I don't know. But what I'm saying is that why can we not have that conversation with sober minds? I know the current climate is that people are angry, frustrated, and understandably so, and they feel taken for granted and vulnerable to exploitation and all of that. And it is true and it's understandable. But what I'm saying is we can we not have that conversation without taking the people who support that or who come up with these things as being antagonistic or being anti-progress or trying to take advantage of people. Because and especially with my organization, one of the things that will come up, which I know for a fact, is we definitely would be accused of taking people for granted and exploiting them. The expectation and the accusation will be that we have the money to employ the people and all of that, which is not true. We budget like all other organizations. We recruit, we have the ideal setting or organization structure we want, but we have to get the people bit by bit because of the financial implications, and also logistically, because remember when you employ people, and my organization is in a transitional state, we are changing a lot of things. So when you employ people, you need to make sure that they've got the tools to work and they are clear on what the work they need to do is, and they are able to perform, and you must be able to monitor that performance and its overall contribution to the organization's strategy and goals, right? So it's not just getting people in, but there are a lot of things that you have to look at. So we would get accused that we have money and blah blah blah, but we're just exploiting people, and it's not always true. But I'm saying that even in my organization, we are recruiting, but what I'm also finding is that it's very difficult for people who are not in our environment to understand and prepare for interviews. Once we get to the technical questions, they become, and that happened to me as well, by the way. they become very challenged with the technical questions because they don't really understand a lot of what we do, and it's understandable. Um, so these that I'm talking about, these opportunities gives one a peek through the window or insight into other areas where they can use their skills, their clinical skills, without necessarily being employed in hospital or doing clinical work, but applying clinical knowledge in a different setting. So we look at this one dimensionally, but I think if we broadened our minds and said, look, no one is being forced to do this thing, but it's just something that we are throwing out there to say, can we not have these things as a temporary solution whilst we're still trying to fix what's going on, which is seemingly going to take a while within our public health sector, which is leading people to be sitting at home and competing for jobs they shouldn't be, because realistically speaking, there's a great demand for health professionals across the country. The issue is the budget by the departments. They don't have the money to employ these people, but they need the people. So whilst we're still trying to remedy that situation, what are the temporary things that we can do to make sure that people benefit somewhat, even if it's not to the extent they would want to? People don't go insane sitting at home doing nothing. We look at all these opportunities, and a person weighs and chooses what's best for them or what they think would work for them. And the great thing about such things is that you are not bound by a contract that says, unless of course you get a bursary that gets you a certain qualification, then there you might be bound by a contract to perform for a certain period. But generally speaking, with internal trainings and other workshops and all of that, you're not really bound to stay in a place. If it's not for you, then you say, I'm okay, I'm good. Or if you get something better, then you say, no, thanks for the opportunity, but now I'm sorted. And that's really all that I'm saying to people, that maybe let's talk about this, let's think about it. If it's not for you and you don't see value in it, then that's okay. But for those who think it might benefit them and they would want such opportunities made available, then we talk and see if we can find one another. Otherwise, everyone have a good weekend.